Hello folks, today I'm testing out the Comica VM20 video microphone. The microphone appears very similar to the Deity VMic D3 Pro and the Rode VideoMic NTG, but it is much less expensive than those mics. The feature set of the VM20 seems to more closely match the Deity, though it's not exact. I have a Rode VideoMic NTG, so I thought it would be fun to check out the Comica and do a comparison to the Rode. I'm currently recording with the Comica VM20 connected into an audio recorder with the furry windscreen in place. Side by side, you can clearly see the broad similarities between the Comica and the Rode. Build quality of the VM20 is pretty good. The microphone body is all metal, and the finish is decent, though there are small things like the output jack that seem to be a bit cheap and unrefined. Comica seems to have attempted to copy the random speckled finish of the Deity, though it's such a small amount of random droplets that it almost looks accidental. It certainly doesn't matter, but it's just a little funny because it looks almost like it could have been in the room when Bob Ross cleaned some black paint from his brush or something. The gain knob turns very smooth and it feels relatively solid. The Rode VideoMic NTG does look and feel nicer overall though, and the gain knob, while just as smooth, has a lot more resistance on the Rode, so it's less likely to get accidentally changed. The shock mount on the Comica has an aluminum base plate, but the actual shoe mount underneath is plastic. It still feels sturdy enough, and it has a metal insert for the threads. It is threaded for 1/4-20 threads, so it can be mounted on a mini tripod or a quick release plate for a tripod, but it would need an adapter to mount on something like a boom arm. The shoe mount on the Rode is aluminum, and it's actually threaded 3/8-16, so it can mount directly on a boom arm, but it would need an adapter to mount on something like a mini tripod. Which threading you prefer will really just come down to preference and how you'll be using it. Unfortunately, the shock mount on the VM20 does almost nothing to eliminate handling noise. When I did my initial test to make sure that the mic worked, I was just holding the mic by the shoe mount, and there was a lot of rumble coming from the mic. I tried the Rode while holding it the same way, and I got almost none of that rumble. So then I switched the Comica into the Rode shock mount, and the rumble mostly went away. So clearly the Rode shock mount is doing a lot better job than the Comica shock mount at actually isolating from handling noise. The Comica does come with a foam windscreen and a furry outer sleeve that can be slipped over the foam and cinched down. It's not the best fur windscreen, but it is included, which is nice. The Rode does not include a fur windscreen. The VM20 mic includes 2 cables. One is a TRS cable and it's labeled camera. The other is TRS on one side and TRRS on the other side, and it is labeled smartphone. This is pretty standard for a TRS-only mic, but it's strange because this mic is advertised as having intelligent TRS to TRRS sensing, just like the Rode VideoMic NTG and the Deity DMic D3 have. So it shouldn't need separate cables. Initially, I figured this mic just didn't actually have that automatic system. But I tested various cable combinations, and I found that the smartphone cable, the one that it includes that says smartphone on it, will work with a camera if you plug the TRRS end of the microphone cable into the microphone and the TRS end into the camera. But that same cable will also work with a phone if you plug the TRRS end of the cable into the phone and the TRS end into the mic. So you can technically use just that one cable for both types of devices. You just have to reverse the cable depending on what you're plugged into. But just out of curiosity, I tested the microphone with the TRRS cable that comes with the Rode VideoMic NTG. That cable is TRRS on both ends, and that cable actually worked fine on the VM20 when connected to either a camera or a smartphone. So I don't know why they didn't simply include a TRRS cable with this mic, since you can use one on any device. It's really not a big deal. It was just, to me, a strange choice of cables to include, considering that this mic does have that automatic feature. This microphone has a built-in rechargeable battery, and it is charged via a USB-C port on the microphone itself. But what's weird is that I found that the microphone will not charge when it's plugged into an actual USB-C jack on a computer or battery pack or something. The mic includes a USB-C to USB-A cable, and with that cable or any other USB-C to A cable, it will charge fine when plugged into a USB-A port. But I have USB-C to USB-C cables, and it doesn't charge when plugged into a USB-C port. The Rode, on the other hand, also has a USB-C port on the microphone, but it will charge whether it's connected to a USB-C or a USB-A port on whatever device you're charging from. So maybe the Comica USB jack doesn't technically conform to USB-C standards, even though it is a USB-C jack. Not really sure, but I just found it interesting that it won't charge off a USB-C port. The VM20 mic has a low-cut filter with both 75 Hz and 150 Hz settings. Going back to the handling noise issue, I found that the 150 Hz low-cut filter setting does get rid of that handling noise almost completely, but it also affects the overall tone of the sound, so it's not a perfect solution, but at least it does have that option and it helps a lot. This microphone doesn't have the auto power on and off feature that the Rode and Deity have. It simply has a power button, which I actually prefer over the Deity's approach of only having the auto power feature. The VideoMic NTG does have the feature where it will automatically turn on and off along with the device that it's connected to, but you can also turn it on and off manually with the power button. On the Comica VM20, you have to press and hold the power button to turn the mic on, but if you let go as soon as the power light comes on, the mic will shut right back off. You have to hold the power button for an extra second until the battery display comes on as well, then it'll stay on. Speaking of that battery display, there is one. There is a little OLED battery gauge. It turns off after a short time, presumably to save battery, and a short press of the power button will display it again. This is a handy feature that neither the Rode or the Deity have. However, the Rode also has quite a few additional features of its own. First, it has the option of a safety track. When this feature is activated, the microphone will separate the left and right channels. It will record one at the set gain level, and it'll record the other one at a reduced gain level, so you have a backup track if something on the full gain channel gets clipped. It also has a high frequency boost in addition to the two low cut filter options that the Comica has. It has a -20 dB pad for miking very loud sources, and it has the little red light that flashes to indicate when the microphone is peaking. Another major feature the Rode has is the ability to work as a USB microphone when connected to a computer. This may not be a feature that everyone needs, but it does add versatility to the VideoMic NTG for someone who might want a camera-mounted microphone, as well as something that they can use to record directly into a computer. In terms of performance, up to this point you have been hearing the VM20 in my sound booth with zero editing. The microphone is about 6 to 8 inches from my mouth, and it is connected directly into my audio recorder. Now for comparison, I've switched to the Rode VideoMic NTG. I'm still connected directly to my audio recorder, and I'm still about 6 to 8 inches away. The Comica VM20 doesn't have a very strong output, even at maximum gain. It is higher than passive, non-powered microphones, but not all that much. The Rode VideoMic NTG has far more output than the VM20 when the gain is maxed out. For example, on my Blackmagic Pocket 4K, I usually set the audio level on the camera to around 80 to 85% when using non-powered on-camera microphones, because the preamp on the Pocket 4K's 3.5mm jack just isn't that strong. When the Comica VM20 is connected to that camera at maximum gain, I can only turn the camera's input down to about 60% if I want to get similar levels to what I get with the passive microphones. So it's better, but not a dramatic difference. On the other hand, with the Rode VideoMic NTG at max gain, I have to turn the Pocket 4K's input level down to 8% in order to get similar levels. So it definitely has a lot stronger output than the Comica VM20. The good news is that the output on the VM20 remains pretty clean at max gain, so there's no need to avoid turning the gain all the way up. Just be aware that if you have a camera with weak or noisy preamps, the VM20 may leave you wishing for just a bit more gain. Now I'm holding the microphone on a little tripod, and I'm going to turn each one as I talk so that you can get an idea for the pickup pattern and how well each microphone rejects noise from the side and from the back. Starting with the Rode VideoMic NTG, I'm talking straight at the front of the microphone right now, about 8 inches or so away from my mouth, and I'm going to start turning it. So now I'm slowly turning the microphone. Now I have the microphone 90 degrees from my mouth, and I'm talking directly towards the side of the microphone, and this is how it sounds. And if I continue turning the microphone, now the microphone is pointed directly away from me. I'm talking straight towards the back of the microphone, and this is how it sounds. And now I'm recording with the Comica CM20. Once again, the microphone starting out pointing directly at my mouth, and I'm going to slowly turn it so that you can get an idea for how it sounds from the side and from the back. And you may also get an idea of the difference in the handling noise because both of these microphones are mounted on this little tripod, and both of them are mounted on the shock mounts that they come with. So I'm going to slowly start turning the Comica microphone to the side. Now I'm speaking directly towards the side of the microphone, 90 degrees from my mouth. Now I'm going to keep turning the microphone. Now the microphone is pointed directly away from me. I'm talking directly towards the back of the microphone. And so this is how it sounds directly from the rear. And once again, the microphone is pointed directly at my mouth. So hopefully that gives you some idea of how much each of these microphones isolates from the side and from the back. Now I'm outside and I have the VM20 recording directly into my camera, and the low cut filters are currently off. I'm about 18 to 20 inches away from the mic, and the microphone is pointing back at me. There is a small amount of wind this evening, so hopefully you'll get an idea of how much this wind muff actually filters out the wind. Now I've turned on the 75 Hz low cut filter so you can get an idea of how much that affects the sound. 75 Hz should be low enough that it doesn't affect my voice very much, but it should filter out some wind and other rumbles. Now I've switched to the 150 Hz low cut filter. That will much more dramatically cut out wind and other rumble, but it's also high enough to more noticeably affect the tone of my voice and the tone of other sounds as well. Now I've switched the low cut filter back off completely so that you can have that, direct back and forth comparison to just no filters at all. Now I'm recording with the Rode VideoMic NTG. I'm still about 20 inches or so away from the microphone, and I have an aftermarket furry windscreen in place. I'm still recording directly into the camera. There's still just a very slight breeze, which I'm pretty sure that this windscreen is going to filter out completely. Now I've turned on the 75 Hz low cut filter, and the effect shouldn't be surprising because it should be pretty much the same as it was with the other microphone. Now I've switched the 150 Hz low cut filter on, which again should really remove any rumble, but it will also thin out the sound quite a bit. Now I've turned the low cut filter off completely, but I have turned on the high frequency boost. The high frequency boost can help bring back the detail that can sometimes get cut out by wind muffs. And finally, just for comparison, I've turned everything off, and now you're just back to hearing the microphone just in flat mode with no filters or boosts on. So there you have it. The Comica VM20 is $130, so it's not super inexpensive, but it is quite a bit cheaper than the Rode VideoMic NTG. You've been able to listen to both of them today, and hopefully you know enough about the differences to decide which one is right for you, or if neither one is right for you. There's certainly no lack of options out there these days. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.